My name's Jack Carlson, also known as Big Planes on YouTube, and yeah, so this is the 787 Dreamliner here. This one took quite a bit of time and a lot of effort to get a lot of the compound curves and stuff going on here, but I thought it actually turned out pretty well, and was able to make it here to Bricks by the Bay with it, and yeah, so I'll sort of show you around all we got going on here. So first, a little bit of historical context. This is the 787-8 Dreamliner, so really more of a 21st century aircraft, not too much of the past, but there's a lot going on here that Boeing had to do in order to make it very efficient, more competitive with some of the Airbus offerings. So the wings in general have very slick curve, and they have a raked wingtip, which allows it to have a better vertex control at the end than having a winglet, which is something that took a little bit of engineering to figure out, but I'm no professional in aerodynamics, so I'm not sure exactly how that works. And this plane does have flaps, so I'll try to show these to you. Oh, as we come around, sorry, this might be a bit of a hard reach, but the inboard flaps, they work pretty simple mechanism. It just slides right in like that. And then the outboard flaps here, it's very simple as well. You just pull it straight up, and in it comes like that. And the flap tracks are just pretty much remain attached to the flap pieces themselves and are more for show. They don't actually have any tracks going on inside of them. And I had to use a lot of very rare elements inside the wing design itself, and getting all these angles to meet up together in one curve really took a lot of effort, and wow, that was quite difficult. So I'm glad that worked out. I had to go to Slovenia to find these older bricks here. I believe they're from the 80s actually, but it worked really well. And something you may notice with the engines is that they have a serrated trailing edge. Now, this wasn't actually to reduce the efficiency or to increase the efficiency, because these things didn't help the airflow. What it did is it helped reduce the noise of the aircraft, which means it had to have less insulation on the inside, which made the whole thing a lot lighter. So this is the Rolls-Royce Trent 1000, and this did have some problems, this particular engine, but they eventually did smooth them out, and they're dealing with the 737 MAX right now. But I was able to fit a Power Functions M motor inside the engine, and the fan blade can spin. So this is something I really wanted to do, and you can see it next to the minifigure. It's just absolutely massive, and these are one of the larger engines. It's actually almost the size of the 737 fuselage, or narrow-body fuselages. So, yeah, that was very interesting.
That's really awesome. Can you tell me, when you decided that you wanted to do the 787, what were some of the challenges that you had never faced before with your other planes?
Oh, this thing is just so much sleeker than everything else. That's the problem, is that nothing's straight, nothing's like, the wingtips are very curved, the hedral is incredibly wide, and the thing with the 787 is that when it's in flight, the wings really bend upwards. It's really quite a sight to see. So I tried to get that as much as I could. The wings on this plane have a really complicated wing structure to actually get it to look much more accurate and have the wings go really high off the ground. And it actually worked out pretty well. And this one doesn't have that much warp in the wings like a lot of my other builds, and that's something that I'm actually really happy with. And the fuselage, I tried to get the fuselage to be smoother, because the 787 has a very shiny kind of round fuselage. Most planes do, but the 787 really sort of emphasizes the curves and the sort of subtle, it's very, very futuristic, if you will.
Sure. So this thing has a detailed interior, right?
Yes, it does have an interior. So I guess I'll show you that. We're going to start with the tail. Well, we're not going to start with the tail, but the tail is pretty much like the front. They're all economy. So I'm going to remove the roof here, and hopefully nothing bad happens. I already sort of loosened the tile up here earlier, so it comes off right here. Tail is good, right? And then up here in the front comes off, like so. Ooh. And when you do that, the roof does come off. I did arrange this in a 131 configuration. Now, on the real plane, it would be in a 333, but this would be emulating the 242 configuration, mostly because the minifigures are really wide, so getting them to fit in there at this plane is quite a challenge because they're not proportionally accurate. And I decided to have minifigures instead of having the seat arrangements be accurate, so that's mostly what I did here. And you can see that I do have some figures in there, and you always have that one jerk that reclines his seat back super far, and yeah, that was trying to get that. And it's not a full flight, but there are some people in there. This guy trying to sip his coffee over there. Looks like a mom with her baby, and yeah, so I just try to get that. This would be known as the cattle class because you're just there to fill the plane. The airline doesn't make most of its money off of you, so yeah. And more towards the front here, this is where it starts getting a little bit more interesting. I'm going to try to disconnect some bits here because, there we go. This all comes off. So if you disconnect it here. Well, let's see if we can get this to come off. It might be a little tail heavy when I do this, so gotta be a little concerned about that. When we do that. Ugh. Guess we'll just drop this bit right here. That's all right. We'll put this right here to add a bit of a counterweight. So this right here is the first class area, and yeah, I tried to make this as detailed as I could. We have the privacy partitions here. This would be, normally there would be a little staircase right here to the upper class, or not the upper class, where the sleeping bays were for the flight crew. But instead I just put some cabinets here. Maybe they would store some stuff, I'm not sure. And this right here is the privacy partition where the first class, this was known as a premium economy in the Norwegian Airlines. And I put this in a 131 configuration. The seats are quite large, but it's not very full either. But you do see we have some fancy business folks traveling. They're a bit more wealthy than the rest of us, or a bit wealthier than the rest of us, so we can't afford to fly up here. But yeah, I did try to put a couple people up here. The lavatories here are a little bit larger. You see the doors do open. This one took a bit of the roof with it, or the roof took a little bit of this lavatory, but you can actually see in there a little bit better now. There is a full toilet and sink. I tried to put those in there. It's a really cramped configuration, but it does work. And up here towards the very front, very, very front, this is the cockpit, and there is a functioning cockpit door. This actually can open and close like this. Works pretty well. And you can fit people up there, so we're just going to pick a random passenger from our area. This guy right here looks like he's suffering, so we'll relieve him from that. And you can see that a minifigure actually can fit up here in the front. I'm not going to fully connect him, but can fit. And I did put a couple of yokes in there, and I tried to put some detailed parts there the best as I could, but again, it's Lego, so there's not overly too many parts you can put in there that works. And the doors are on a double hinge system, so they do slide in like this, and then slide in all the way, like so. Like that, there you go. And when they close like that, it's pretty much like how a real airplane door works, but yeah, it has to be modified a little bit for Lego. So yeah.
That's cool. What can you tell me about the decal on the front windshield? Is that a custom?
Yeah, so the front windshield, I went through a lot of different design issues with the front of this nose because it's so slick and the rest of the plane's so smooth and stuff that getting a nose that don't look terrible is quite difficult. So I just took your standard windscreen piece, and I didn't think it looked good enough, so I just applied a sticker on it that seems to work pretty well, actually.
Yeah, I actually think it makes it look, in my eyes, it looks perfect. So you did a great job sort of transforming that standard, Lego windscreen into something that looks like it really fits this airplane. Tell me a little bit. You got Freddie Mercury back there on the back of the plane. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so Freddie Mercury was the person we chose because he seemed to be the most popular on the YouTube channel. Now, I understand he would have been on a Dash 9, but this was the most popular. Everybody wanted to, put Freddie Mercury on the tail. So I did go ahead and do that. And Dan Keyes, who comes to this convention about every year, he actually did the favor and printed the tail. So these aren't decals. They're actually printed on there. He used an electronic printer and it pad printed it directly onto the tail. So all these markings on this plane, these are all prints. None of these are stickers, which means it's a lot more durable than having a sticker on there would be.
That's really wonderful. I honestly, I thought that was a decal back there, but it is printed. So if you took that apart, would you have each piece of that emblem of Freddie Mercury's face and then be able to reassemble it?
Well, yeah, it would be kind of like a puzzle, I guess. At least with a sticker, it won't get under it and ruin it. So yeah, the problem with stickers is they peel a lot. So.
Right. Well, that looks really wonderful. You've got a couple other planes over here. Is there anything else you want to say about the 787 before we move on?
Well, I would like to say it does have retracting landing gear, but I can't really demonstrate that right now because it's on the table. But the landing gear does retract, and it does have cargo bays doors. So I'm going to try to demonstrate for this to you as best as I can. It's sort of a double hinge mechanism, kind of like the doors, but it slides nicely into place like that. Yeah. So now I'll open it for you so you can see how it works. This is one of the benefits of having printed parts is that you can sort of separate the parts like this. But again, this just comes loose like so, and the door just opens like that. And there is a cargo bay in there. I might know it might be kind of hard to see, especially on camera, but you can fit stuff. I know you could, if you wanted to, load some pallets in there, or maybe just some loose luggage. But I think on the larger flights and larger planes, they would load pallets instead of individual luggage. So yeah.
That's great. I love the attention to detail that you make, with kind of the way the doors work. That definitely reminds me of the way actual plane doors work. And you've talked about the interior with the seats and whatnot. What can you tell me about the light effects that you've got on this plane?
Okay, yeah. So the lights on this plane, these are all brick stuff lights. So it's using the brick stuff system. And what I basically did is I put the main battery pack. There's 2 battery packs. There's one for the lights and one for the engines. The lights is using a AAA's, and the engines is a LiPo, so I can recharge it. And what I did is I ran some wires out through the wings all the way out here. And there's one going right here and one out here on the end. So this would be, I guess, just the main illumination light. I'm no professional on the planes and all their lights and stuff, but I'm guessing these are just the navigation lights, so I tried to include those on there as best as I could. And it also does have a strobe light on the top and bottom. It's a little bit disassembled here, so it's kind of hard to see. But there is one on the bottom there that's flashing on the table that's still going, so glad to see it's still going.
That's really cool. You want to take us and show us these other couple planes over here?
Yeah, I guess I'll show you what we have over here. All right, so this is the 727, and this is the 200 model, which means it's the more stretched of the bunch, and it's in the Southwest livery. Again, this is printed. Our good friend Dan Keyes printed that too, so this isn't coming off. But Southwest did actually operate some 727s in the mid-'80s. They leased them from another airline, I don't really remember which one it is, to operate some longer routes, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, this one has a lot of the same features as the other one, but it's just a lot smaller. So up towards the front here, I'll just start with the cargo door since that's what we finished with last time. The 737 doesn't have this, but this one does. See if it works. Got to kind of push it in where it's like this. There we go. And like that. So that's how that closes nice and neatly. Nice flush. And there is room in there, though I did have to put some ballast bricks in the front of this because it's quite tail heavy. Even though the nose is so long, it is quite tail heavy. And this one does have a T-tail and a center engine in the tail. So this is a tri-jet, which is one of the things that was really sort of cool and stood out about the 727 is that it had 3 engines. And the third engine is actually in the tail cone itself. And this is just an S-duct where the air is taken in. So yeah, that was something that was really cool.
That is cool. I love the color scheme on this plane. Southwest, before they introduced kind of that purple periwinkle into the color scheme. So this really reminds me of like the few flights I would take or picking up my dad at the airport when I was a kid. That's cool.
Yeah, I really like the desert gold livery. This was something that you don't see as much anymore, and you might occasionally see it at some airports, but especially on the 727, I thought it was a really neat look.
That's great. What about the Lufthansa down here?
Okay, so the Lufthansa, this is a 737-500, so it's the smallest 737 variant. It's part of the Classic series, so don't worry, it's not a MAX. And this one does have a lot of the same features as the other two, but again, it's much smaller. So it does have powered engines, and I tried to show those the best by putting a little spinner on it so you could see it. But this was really challenging because I needed to find a part that worked really well for the intake, the gray part around the intake, and those parts just fit perfectly. So I also was able to just barely fit in the disc piece for the jet engine turbine, so that worked really well too. And this one does have an interior. It's a little easier to get to than the 787, but I guess I'll show you that. So the way this works is that you can just pull off the entire roof. Whoa, just like that.
That's great.
And yeah, this one's better for shows, I guess, because you can actually see it. But yeah, it does have the sausage doors, which have become kind of a bit of a joke on the channel now. But they used to be red. I made them black because it blends in a little bit better. And this isn't exactly how Lufthansa would have it laid out, but it's kind of close, where they would have their premium seats up in the front and then the cattle class in the back. These are in a 1-1 configuration, even though it should probably be a 2-2 or even a 3-3 with more leg room. But since minifigures are kind of fat, that's what we ended up with. We have the cape right here, which again is being used as a privacy partition between the business class and the cattle class. And back here, I was able to include a couple of emergency exits because, we have to stay up to date with safety codes. So, yeah, those come out. And it's a fairly basic assembly. It's just a 1x2 brick with a panel on the top. But, yeah, it fits right in there. And I tried to include as much in this one as I could. So there's no lavatory up here towards the front, even though there should be. But that's, again, more space constraint. But the cockpit on this one is fully detailed, and there are a couple of yokes in there to control the plane, though it's quite cramped on this one, so you might struggle to fit a figure in there. But it is in there, and it's about how it would be. And back here, at the very back here, you could kind of roll the plane forward. So I can show you this a little bit better. It's an uneven table, so it's hard to just demonstrate this. There are a couple lavatories back here, and the doors, again, do function on these, so it's hard to sort of show that. It's very cramped. And I did try to put a little galley in the back. I know there should be a little bit more, but again, this is a very small plane, and the 737 galley is usually pretty cramped, so it's pretty accurate. The doors on this one are kind of like the 787, but a little simpler. They just use two battle droid arms, and they pop right out, like so. Open like that.
This is cool. These are all really great, Jack. Would you say that these 3 planes are fairly well scaled to one another? Do you pay attention to that when you're building?
Yeah, so all these planes are around 136 to 138 scale. I try to keep that because it's about half or twice. I think it's twice as large as 172, which is really good for finding decals because that's a standard model size, and also good for finding blueprints because you only have to multiply it times 2. But yeah, I try to keep these all around minifigure scale, so minifigures go really well with them. Some people find minifigure scale more around 140, 145, but I usually build a little bit larger because it leaves me more room for flaps and seats and stuff, and that's something that, yeah, I usually try to keep at the same scale.
That's great. How long have you been building planes?
I would say for about 4 years now. I originally started doing cars a little bit, but I like planes a little bit better because they're bigger, and oftentimes they haven't done as much as cars a lot. So I started doing planes about 4 years ago. I used to do military a lot, and I sort of offshot out into civilian. And so that's really what I've been doing a lot of lately, is civilian aircraft. And I've done the 747 in the past before the let me think, the Constellation, and I'm hoping to be able to do a 707 soon here, along with some other Airbus aircraft, because I know that's also hotly demanded. But yeah, planes have been always something I've enjoyed, and I guess you could call I'm a bit of a av geek, I guess.
Well, that's cool. If people want to check out more of the planes that you've built, where can you tell them to go?
Oh yeah, so this is the channel Big Planes, and I try to go through and explain how I build planes. I do progress updates on planes, and I'll go to do full tours on stuff. And yeah, it's really just where I kind of upload everything related to planes and to what I'm doing in the LEGO community. So yeah, Big Planes. That's what I'm sort of known as on YouTube and Flickr as well, and Patreon, though that's just to help fund the planes because they're really big. So yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for showing your planes with us today. They're really awesome, and we appreciate your time.